Each of the students will have questions for Robert, and they'll kind of have an interview-style conversation. We'll have this period of the conversation for about a half hour, and then we'll open it up to the broader audience.
Great, so I'll start us off. Herzlich willkommen in Georgetown. We're extremely happy to have you here, and thank you for such a wonderful talk. My question is relevant to the talk, I guess, first-handedly. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more to the progressive vision and the implications that American politics have on this progressive vision. Do you foresee the need for safeguards on the European side? Do you foresee, you mentioned the people-to-people interactions that are so important in this time when we aren't sure how politics in the US might be playing out. So I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit more to how you foresee planning for the uncertainty of American politics and the transatlantic relationship.
American politics, you mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's better you explain American politics. But of course, I'm concerned. I think that, if I may say that, Donald Trump and his government is not following the idea I tried to outline in my little speech. They are not focusing on multilateral approaches, but bilateral deals. And these deals are not following an idea of change, but restitution of the things we have. From my point of view, this will lead to a way that the problems we got become even bigger in any case. So I'm worried. I would like to stress that transatlantic relationship is broader, deeper, and has another quality than politics of deals. So I think we, as a progressive community, if I may put it like that, we have to be very careful that we don't mix the criticism we might have with each other with the fundamental friendship that existed over the Atlantic. Saying that, my job is more working for a Europe that could be a partner, like I tried to say, being a strong leg, so that we have two strong legs. And this is what we are not a strong leg. We have enormous economical power, but we are not using it politically. And if I think about how we can get there, the Europeans, I come to my country, and this is good because I'm a German politician. I think if Germany uses its economic power, helping Europe to finding the next steps, then we can achieve more unity in Europe, and then we can offer the United States more. And then it's up to the United States which way they want to go. But we come from a time where I know that the impression of America must be that Europe is complicated, it's bureaucracy, it takes all too long, there are no results, and so on and so on. So we have to change that. I think it's not true in every aspect, but I see the idea, I see the frustration behind it, of course. So it's up to us, act more, but until we are able to do that, don't give up the idea of transatlantic partnership, meaning a quality of transatlantic partnership. So this is what I try to line out.
Great. Thanks. I'll let Kara take it.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Greater transatlantic economic cooperation could add a layer of protection to democratic values in the international rules-based system championed by the EU and threatened by rivals such as China and Russia. Considering the lack of European grassroots support for TTIP, and assuming the next US president abandons the protectionist agenda of the current administration, how should the EU approach a future transatlantic trade deal that would actually receive backing from European civil society organizations and ordinary European citizens?
Well, this is a heavy question for me. Because, as you may know, I'm from the Greens, and we opposed the TTIP agreement. And this was because of the idea that every regulation that is an obstacle for free trade must vanish or downsized. And my party come from ecologic and human rights movements, and all the obstacles, they are of course also achievements. They are fought for, and they are results of democratic evolution in a way. So this idea of trade is the basis of everything, and it's not directed, as long as it's trade and the GDP rises, is not very much into my thinking and not in the line of my party. But of course I see with the problems we have now discussed, or I mentioned, that talking about transatlantic partnership can us lead to the question how we find new treatments and regulations, common regulations together. And this could be an answer. For now, I think the European Commission and Mrs. von der Leyen and the American government try to find a deal, like with China, meaning we buy or sell some numbers, but it's not common regulation, a common market, and so on and so on. So there are, I think, if you want to step to that, there are two possibilities. The first is very small. It might be easy to find a common regulation system. So which color have the traffic lights, which color, which is the norm for the plugs, and so on and so on. I think nobody has a problem with that. If you come to Europe and you don't have to buy a plug changing system, you save some money, and we do the same here. So this is not a problem at all. So this is then a very small common regulation system, not a real treatment, but it's a, yeah, this could be one idea, and the other one should be very broad, meaning it should not be a trade treatment, and not a trade agreement, but an agreement on values. If this is possible, then it would be easier for the people to understand why it is good. Let's, for example, say that we find a Green New Deal system in Europe, we are working on it, and the US finds the same system. And we have CO2 prices, we have labor standards, and so on and so on. And we compare our values, our standards with each other. And this, of course, has an influence for trade. Then it's easier to swallow for the people. So I think we have to make it very small, or we have to make it very broad. Yeah. I don't see the broad one in the next years, actually, but yeah, that could be the solution.
Thank you.
Yeah, also, thank you very much for your talk. In your speech, you talked about the EU's place in the world and the need to act more united in the face of common challenges. But you also mentioned that there's this unity and paralysis in EU decision-making. And one of those issues where this unity persists is migration. You recently made a proposal back in December to take in child refugees from camps in Greece to Germany unilaterally, and that got pushed back from the government. They said we should prioritize a European solution on this level. But the broader question, I guess, is are there situations from your perspective where Germany should act more unilaterally and should step outside the EU framework if there is no possible EU decision?
Well, when I proposed that Germany at least get the children out of the camps in Greece, and the conditions there are horrible. Everyone, I haven't been there, but I've talked to a lot of people who had been there, and they say it's unbelievable. They live in the mud, they freeze to death, they have no education, they have not food, the parents are fighting about everything. The camps are 10 times overpopulated, so it's horrible, and it could be very easy to just take the ones with the most vulnerable, the children out. And then when I said that, I was accused of, what was the accusation? Nationalistic humanity or something like that. So it was a nationalistic approach, they said. And I think this is what I called an Orwellian mixture in the language. Nationalistic approaches mean acting egoistic and for yourself. If help and solidarity is nationalistic, then we can't decide anymore what is wrong and what is right. Then we are at war is peace and peace is war. Then we lose the ability to decide whether politics is good or bad. So I think, to answer your question, yes, it should be possible to act in a unilateral way if you help people. To be better than the norm is always should always be a possibility. And to announce that as nationalistic is really bad. Then we lose the language to decide and to talk about politics. So I don't see where the problem is concerning European solidarity if Germany takes, I don't know, some 100 people out of these camps. But the problem is, and this has happened in Germany in the last 4 or 5 years, that we don't have the power anymore. After the refugees crisis in Germany, or one of the result of the refugees crisis in Germany, which was in some times really bad managed, this is true, is that my country in a way lost the ability to show humanitarian efforts. And this is really, really a bad experience. I think in 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it would be maybe the CDU, the Conservative Party, who would make the suggestion, okay, let's take the children out. But they don't do it anymore. They are afraid of right-wing populists and so on and so on. If the children are coming, the parents are coming. If the parents are coming, the friends of the parents are coming. And then we have the same discussion. So we can't act anymore on a humanitarian standard because of our fear to make political mistakes. So it's a bad experience.
Take another one.
Yes,
That's okay.
yeah, of course.
So keeping it kind of in a thematic vein, Dr. Newman mentioned that I focus on kind of feminist-related policies, and you mentioned in your talk that part of the progressive vision has to do with a strong economy, and you can achieve your environmental objectives by ensuring that your economy is sustainable and is tough and durable. And so there's a lot of recent research that indicates that women play a huge role in a strong economy, and that the percentage of women is very reflective of increases in GDP. And so I'm wondering, particularly in Germany, there are very low rates of women's participation in some sectors of the workforce. And so I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more to that and any potential that you see or that your party foresees in engendering greater rates of women's participation.
Yes.
Well, you are studying gender studies, don't you? So once again, I try to explain something that maybe you know better than me, but I can tell you that this maybe you know, my party has a gender quotation in the party norm from the beginning, which makes it sometimes hard for the men to do whatever they want, which is good. This is the sense of it. And the result is, of course, that by norm, half of the folks in government are women. Annalena and me, we share we have a co-partnership, and it's working. And I'm sure that the idea of power, for example, is shaped another way by all the women in my party, because they don't have this macho attitude. Some of them have, of course, but broadly speaking, it's more open in a way. And this was sometimes bad for campaigning, because in the time where, I don't know if you remember Joschka Fischer, Gerhard Schröder, Otto Schilly, so the guys of the red-green government in 1980 to 2005, they were all like, come on, I know everything, and go sit down, and I don't want to question, I know the answers right away, and so on. So they were really men. And in a time where this was popular, having a quotation system, thinking about another approach to power and might was not helpful in campaigning, because this macho attitude was in a way expected from politicians to be so. But this is not the case anymore. Power is organized another way. If you now want that people are listening to you, you have to be able to listen. You have to, if you want to achieve something, you have to work in teams, and you have to make it clear that you have another approach to society and to people and to order and so on. And this we have learned, the men in my party have learned from the women in my party, mainly, I think. And you have the figures when you give amounts of money to people in, I don't know, to a village in Africa, and you give it to the men, they buy weapons, and if you give to the women, they educate the children. So this is, you can see there is some advantage. In Germany, we, compared to Scandinavia, for example, we are a little bit behind. I think we made some progress in the last years, but traditionally we have a very old-fashioned family idea, meaning it's good for the children if the mother stays at home. And this was now solved and it's not that strong anymore, but we were like 10 years behind. So yeah, but still there is some work to be done. And
10
in
years,
Germany,
20 years,
I don't know if you know, we have labor force. We have 1 billion open jobs in Germany, and where should all the people come from? So it's good for the economy, and it's good if you want to do that, if you participate in the economy. And I think we will soon see greater results of participation and then also a new rise of feminism. I can see that in my party. All the young women, they are so self-confident, and they are talking about feminism in another way. It has nothing with aggressive against men or so, but it's a very self-confident, friendly, but powerful approach they stand for.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for it.
Yeah.
So I'm writing my master's project on the circular economy, and I know you touched on a lot of points related to that. So I want to ask a question on that subject. Germany has long been viewed as a driving force in Europe for an environmentally friendly economy and has contributed significantly to the European Commission's circular economy package. On the other hand, however, its failure to achieve climate targets calls this role into question, and Germany's environmental policy is increasingly perceived as reactive. What measures are the Greens prepared to take to secure Germany's leadership in steering European sustainability initiatives?
I concentrate on the circular economy right now. I just leave all the Green New Deal stuff, just push it away. I'm not talking about renewable energies and transmission lines and cars and so on. But to come to your point, I'm focusing on circular economy. In my understanding, we have to get away from the thinking that something is waste. There is no waste. It's always raw materials for the next upcycling process. But products, plastic for example, are designed that this is not possible. They are designed for the fast use, and then you throw it away, and the best you can do is burn it, not that it's gonna be in the ocean. So the best idea, burning things. This is wrong. We have to design the products in another way. Of course, complicated products like mobile phones, cars, computers, laptops, and so on. But even very kind of simple products like plastic, for example, we had this big discussion in Germany. There's an awareness that plastic is a problem in nature. I don't know if it's in the US. I see a lot of plastic flying around here, but we have maybe even more than in Germany, than in Europe. But of course, there is some progress. Some countries have banned plastic bags. But still, the main idea is we use plastic for bottles, like the ones I've drank out. We use it for everything, and then we hack it into pieces, and then we use it for something else, but we downsize it for park banks, for pillars, for whatever. But it is possible to upcycle this plastic system if you mix the plastic molecules right. And this is more expensive, so nobody does it if the law is changing. And this is what we try to do, changing the product regulation, that you must design the products that they can reused, and then they should be reused. So I think this is really one example where regulation will bring the economy to new goods and new thinking. So you can't leave politics behind, I think.
So you laid out your progressive vision for Europe and for Germany here today, and that progressive vision obviously includes topics beyond just climate, your signature issue. But if we look at polls in Germany, voters still really associate the Greens primarily with climate politics, and on issues such as economic, social, and foreign policy, their competencies rank much lower than the traditional center CDU and SPD parties. How do you overcome that challenge of wanting to be a governing party and wanting to speak to a variety of issues, but still being perceived as sort of the one-issue party? And do you see that as a challenge in the upcoming federal elections?
It is, as we heard it before from Karen, as we are not satisfied being that anymore, a party who cares for all the small issues the other ones don't care for. This is not our role anymore, but in a way we try to explain to the others the role of liberal democracy in our society. My party was founded as an anti-party party. That was the phrase, against the system, against the state, against the nuclear state and the police state and so on and so on. And in the last 40 years ago that my party was founded, we changed, we grew in a new role. We were not founded for that, but now we are in the center of German politics. And sometimes we are the ones who had, I would argue, the clearest compass where to go, where all the others are confused and they don't know which direction society should go. We at least have an idea. It might be complicated, and sometimes we have this moral attitude to educate people and so on. I know that, but at least we have an idea what politics and democracy should stand for in the next decade, and I doubt that all the other parties have it. They have the old idea, but this is not really relying to minority issues, feminism, cultural issues, environmental questions, European questions, and so on and so on. So I would admit that the Greens they have some problems, let's say, about taxation. So if you ask Winfried Kretschmann, the Minister President of Baden-Württemberg, and some Green from Kreuzberg in Berlin, very left-wing, what do you think about taxation on heritage? They give you two completely different answers. But if you wake them at night and ask, what are your opinions about Europe? They give you exactly the same answer. And this is the future in a way. So we try to interlink the themes that have made us strong and where we have unique experience and a unique standing with the old traditional value system of the German Republic and the ones that transatlantic relationship should rely on. So when we talk about climate crisis, we are not talking about lack of water and maybe some animals that are vanishing, but we are talking about democracy. We had in the last campaign we had a polar bear on our poster. Our climate act against climate change poster had a polar bear on its front, which was of course clear. We have to, if we want to save the polar bear, then we have to do something. But it gave people in a way the impression that the sense of stopping climate change is protecting the polar bear. And I wish the polar bear all the best. But of course it is about a stable liberal democracy. If we don't act confident and fast now, we lose the value system we all rely on. And so this we try to explain. As you heard, ecological and economical reasons, they are interlinked, Green New Deal. People's right, refugees questions, they are interlinked to other questions. And this is our approach, broadening our experience and giving people the trust that we know what we are talking about also in other dimensions. I hope it will work.
Yeah.
We can open up. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you, panelists. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.